spawning up to the top right in the blue, as is tradition. For a liquid, it is Clem.
And in the bottom left side of Pillars of Gold, we look in the main base of the Polish Terran player. Could also be living with Kalaris. We don't know. It is souL.
If he wins, I will consider a part of Krakow his. There you go.
You're so generous, James.
I am a benevolent king.
It's really funny because obviously a year ago, I think a lot of people would have always predicted souL to take this. souL gets incredibly high praise from his colleagues in the European scene, right? I think the whole shout out to souL thing became kind of a meme. But souL was also like, no, he's serious because souL does play a lot of games with souL.
Yeah.
And if souL wouldn't be as good as we often tell the people at home that he is, souL wouldn't be playing games with souL. So he's clearly very good. We know what he's capable of. It's also not fair to say that he never shows it in tournaments because he did knock out stats once from the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. Yeah. So that's obviously a very big victory. souL had his moments. What souL just never had is that absolutely marvelous, magnificent tournament run that we can always talk about. Do you remember when souL made semifinals or finals? No, because it hasn't happened. And it is possible, but we're just waiting for him to show the world what he's really made of.
Yeah, I've got to agree. At the same time, though, you can't rest on the laurels of something like that stats victory, right? And it was the open bracket, if I recall correctly, at that Katowice, and now it's a few years back. So, but souL, when it comes to him as a player, there was always also kind of the meme of like he was very predictable about how he was going to play. Every game was going to look the same, and I don't know. After having my little hiatuses, how accurate that is now, Rotterdam. Is that to a T here still, or?
Well, predictable to some degree, perhaps, but I definitely still think of souL as a little stubborn sometimes.
Okay.
I feel like, especially when he goes up against players that are clearly worse than him, that have a reputation for maybe being cheesy or all-in-y, he would still play the same against them as he would play against one of the top European dogs. And I'm like, that makes no sense, souL. Like, just scout and believe in your ability to react to what you see. And even if you fall a tiny bit behind economically, who cares, right? You're souL. You can turn this around. That he's playing a bit greedy against Clem, I don't really mind. He's clearly just confident in his openings. And he's like, no, unless I avoid X, Y, or Z, I should be fine. And my micro can save the day here.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, he's got his units waiting just in case any Reapers were to come up. However, nobody's really kind of budging just yet when it comes to positioning. Although the Hellions, once they come out here for souL, maybe eventually he will move out across the map here. But even then, there's a bunker at the front. There's not huge windows just yet for anybody.
No. Clem is known to open up with medevacs in this matchup. This is something that Hero Marine has shared with the world. When I had the opportunity to cast a couple games once with Gabe, and he's like, yeah, Clem always opens up with a medevac all the time. And it really stuck with me. Now, most of the time Gabe is onto something, but maybe Clem has picked up on that as well. And he's like, you know what? I've got the reputation for always opening up with a medevac. Why don't I start switching it up a little bit? And maybe I'll go for some Raven or Banshee plays just to keep my opponents honest.
Was that cast with Big Gabe at Meltdown or near Meltdown, or where?
Actually, it was in Krefeld.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, a slight tangent. Isn't there like some big land center opening in Cologne or something?
Wow, James, welcome to this planet. Yes, we've already been there.
Have you?
It's really fun. Yes, I actually played a best of 3 against Hero Marine there. It's like typical Dennis from Take TV. He's like, Kev, I've got a great idea. I was like, what is it? It's like, I want you to be part of the opening of the new land center where we will have some awesome events in the future. Great StarCraft events as well. I was like, sounds great. He's like, and while you're there on the opening day, you'll play a best of 3 against Hero Marine. And I'm like, what? It's like, in which universe is this a good idea? He's like, oh, come on. Like, you're pretty good, right? I was like, well, not really at the moment. And even if I was, that's Hero Marine. Like, if the guy is winning the weekly every week, like, what do you expect me to do? But yeah, I went over there, obviously got absolutely destroyed by Big Gabe. But, yeah, it's a pretty fun place. And I've got very good hopes and feelings that we'll have some awesome StarCraft take place there in the future.
Damn. I'm like, I mean, I don't miss Germany too much. No offense to Germany or whatever, but like the fact that that has opened up over there, like that will make me miss it somewhat. That Reaper is also going to be missing some action at Land Center too.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's like they have all kinds of games set up. They've got a little LAN area at the bottom, or in the basement rather. Then they have like a dedicated corner for Take the V where they can run shows. There is a studio. There's even like technically a little stage where they can perform, and roughly 200 people can sit in a live audience. So my dreams is that we have a home story cup there once, grand finals being played there. Nerds can walk around the venue. I know that a lot of people are very attached to everything always being in Krefeld and like, love that venue. That's home. I get that. But I think we can have one hell of a home story cup at the Experion if it ever happens.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And I mean, Krefeld.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the thing is, like, nobody likes it, but because of Home Story Cup, people did get. Like, I look forward to going to Krefeld. It's like, we are the only people in the world that look forward to going to Krefeld.
That and 80-year-olds, I suppose. Anyway, let's get back into this game. We've got the scan going down. He sees the command center actually floating over to that third base. Even spot the supply depot down towards the bottom to actually spot any kind of potential medevacs that will come along. But already, Clem is on the move out.
Yep. souL has not made it past the halfway mark on this map so far. I'm taking a look at his vision. And this Hellion is the furthest he's been. And he is now going to see that Clem is heading his way. Clem has 2 Ravens. souL has 1. So it is really important for souL that he gets good value out of his Raven. And does he make sure that his tanks do not get disabled by that interference matrix.
Yep. Good spell to have. Scan goes down and actually leaving those a little bit vulnerable. They could quite easily get interference, and they will. Or one of them going to chase this down. The second and third will siege up out of range, get themselves a few medevacs. Odds turrets go down, they fall down quickly. Interference matrix on a few of these siege tanks as well here to shut them down. The Marines are not doing too bad at the front, but they will get obliterated.
Kind of a weird fight there. I mean, souL saved his tank at first. The Vikings are going to land. Clem is going to try to pounce on this position, gets all the tanks, and souL is already in a bit of trouble. He is going to stim forward with a couple of Marines, but he doesn't have much left. I think souL will clean this up, but geez, did it cost him a lot.
Oh, yes, it did. Those Marines were all so low on the side of Clem as well for a long time. So whilst getting value at like 5 HP, 10 HP, like the Hellion, for example, was shooting at siege tanks when it could have been trying to melt those, and small things didn't add up for souL there.
Yeah, I feel like souL had fantastic timing on unsieging his first tank, because the interference matrix was in the air, then he went for the unsiege, he was saving his tank, but then the fight kind of started, and then that tank with interference matrix just drove straight into the army of Clem. And that would have worked great if it was Brad Pitt in the tank, and this is the movie Fury, but it wasn't. So now it was just a donation, and it felt the rest of the fight, it just wasn't that pretty by souL. Like, souL had a nice engagement at first, but it's like, you're just missing units. You just don't have enough units here to really go for the engagement that he was actually going for.
An early sensor tower setting up here as well, just to be able to keep an eye on everything. Now, the medevacs on the right-hand side for souL will fly around this. I do believe.
There is a cyclone.
Oh, cheeky. Sorry, I shouldn't keep using the word cheeky. That's all I'm known for. Bloody hell.
We can't hide who we are, James. You're a cheeky boy, aren't you?
yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, the cyclone did get taken out. James is apparently. He's like, you know what? I'm exposed. It's like, it's okay, James. We still love you. The souL's going to pick up all of his units, and he will go for the main base. And actually, he's going to be able to shut down these turrets. Clem is obviously on point when it comes to evacuating these SCVs immediately. I feel like souL's just going to end up losing everything here. The question is, okay, can he get up? Wow, he actually got... Okay, he does end up losing one of the medevacs. At least he saved the tank, and he's moving the main army forward as well. He's got a Liberator sieging up on top of these tanks. Can souL make something happen here? What a crazy fight, because his tanks are not even sieged on the left side.
Yeah, trying to seize the initiative, and actually doesn't really not take out those 2 siege tanks on the left-hand side. The Marines on the right, though, are trying to gun down what they can, get themselves a Raven, having to move away, though, from these Marines that are pursuing. There's only 1 siege tank sieged up here. If the Marines move on top of it, they're easily going to be able to bring that down and push souL away.
How would this fight have gone if souL would have been able to siege those 2 tanks on the left side? I feel that then those Marines will probably walk through the tank fire. They will already be quite injured by the time they make it towards the right side of that command center. Then there are still all the full HP Marines of souL and that 1 tank that was very nice tucked away behind that pillar. Oh. I mean, at least souL got some counter damage done though, right? He was kind of pulling Clem around, and he is slowly but steady evening up the supplies, and he's got a pretty decent lead in the upgrades. Even though we're 1-1 right now, his 2-2 is going to finish way before the 2-2 of Clem.
Yeah, definitely. And no actual weapons upgrades started for the mech here on the side of Clem just yet, as the siege tanks are slowly going to start leapfrogging forwards here. Another drop actually loading up for souL though on the left-hand side, so he'll try and strike at that 4th base whilst defending his own.
Yep, I mean, his planetary isn't done yet, so this is a bit tricky. souL needs to disengage for sure, because Clem has way more tanks here. Clem, his planetary fortress is going to finish up in time, though. It is important for souL to keep those tanks away from his PF, but I don't know if he can really do that.
That sensor tower went up just at the right time-ish, I suppose, to be able to deal with this. And that siege tank is going to be not long for this world. Will go down, pushing this away as well. These siege tanks, I think they're in range of what? The gas? Yeah, but I mean, once they're there, they can obviously get closer and closer. Interference Matrix, somehow that Raven's still around, is going to disable one of these tanks. And now Clem has his tank in range of the planetary fortress already, and it seems that souL's either going to ambush his army from the top, or he's going for a full-on counterattack. He's a bit indecisive. I think he just wants to engage his army from multiple angles. But I don't know. It's perfect time to 2-2 just finished up for him, so maybe he can actually try and go for this, but it might be a little bit disjointed. Already taking some shots from the backside there, and not moving in from the left just yet.
I mean, this works if it comes as a surprise, but Clem already knows about it, so the Marines are in a really good position. souL is coming in from both angles, and that's obviously beautiful, and he will clean it up. The question is just at what cost, because he did lose quite a few units, lost all of his units on the top side, loses that medevac as well. But taking out 4 tanks, I'd still consider that a victory in the end.
Always feels bad to have to, push into an entrenched position with those siege tanks, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do with souL in that spot. I mean, the ideal response is to not let it get there in the first place, but here we go once again, pushing in against this. We'll take siege tank out of the front, the ones at the back did not siege up just yet, so didn't get much damage done.
I do love how on point souL has been with his upgrades in this game. Every single time his upgrades finish, just fires up the next ones immediately. There is still a lot of action, and I do feel the longer these kind of games go, the better it will be for souL, because he is a much more patient player than Clem is. Now, obviously, we love Clem for his aggression. There is never a boring game when we're casting Clem, but this can also really backfire, especially if the tank lines are just a little too much to run into. This is about to get really wild, James, because souL is going to attack, and Clem at the same time is like, well, then I guess I'm going to attack you as well. And I don't know if it's a full-on base trade, but it's going to get very wild.
Yeah, Clem's army is just kind of bigger in every way right now. The only thing he doesn't really have is that +1 weapons for his mech, but beyond that, that's going to finish up pretty soon here, as he's just going to try and buy some time with siege tanks at his ramp, whilst Clem will then now push up towards this. The siege tanks are on his top of his ramp too.
Yep, and Liberators as well, so that's actually kind of hard to run into for Clem. souL is going to try to pick off one of these orbitals, but there is a tank on the high ground as well for Clem. I love that tank positioning. Is going to get some great shots off and at least keep that orbital safe for now. I mean, obviously, Clem has disabled 3 out of 4 bases.
Yeah.
And at this point, souL, you can say, like, he's sort of disrupting mining on one of them, but this planetary fortress, I think, is absolutely going to fall, and that is just such a big loss for souL.
Yep, when you're going for these base trade situations, or those spots, I suppose, to try and get damage done on your other side, you better do exactly the same amount of damage otherwise, or more, because if not, you're going back to nothing. You haven't really accomplished much here as souL. You're going to take this trade, and you're having to push into these siege tanks to try and clear it out and get your economy back up and running. And yes, you'll clear it up, but Clem behind all of this is flying.
And Clem does get out of there with all of his medevacs as well. That may not seem like that big of a deal, but if you take a look at the units that have gone down in this game, souL has lost 9 medevacs. That's pretty expensive. Clem has only lost a single medevac so far.
More sense towers going down as well. To keep an eye on any kind of moves that will come forward here to try and disrupt his economy on the back of this, almost doubling the worker count too here for Clem. So, and +2 weapons for the mech on the way, whereas Mr. souL still stuck at that 1. Can't afford it.
Yeah, souL is just kind of broke at this point. He's running out of steam. He's down 30 workers, so he needs to make something happen. But before he can even think of making something happen, he already ends up losing 2 more siege tanks. These are just units that he really can't replace anymore. It's 11 tanks against 6, and Clem has the better economy. I have no idea what souL is supposed to do here.
I mean, the one advantage souL has is the fact that he has 3-3 on his bio, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't even get close enough to some of these siege tank lines to actually be useful and effective. It will try and clean up some of the Marines here, but they are taking huge volleys, and souL will get cleaned up on the bottom of this ramp as all of the siege tanks fall down as well.
Clem keeps his undefeated record so far. He is one of the 3 players in this entire tournament that hasn't dropped a map yet. Raynor and Saro are 4-0, 8-0 in maps. Clem is 3-0 in series and now takes the 1-0 lead in this best of 3. Just a really strong game by Clem. It did feel that souL was always trailing after the first initial fight, right? Like that very first fight, the 2 Raven against the 1 Raven. It really did feel that souL just lost a little too much there.
Yep, very difficult to contend with there when Clem is playing quite like that. I do like the positions that Clem forced as well, though, like down towards that 4th base location, kind of slowly wiggling your way across the map and evading your opponent's kind of efforts to delay you. So Clem really knows what he's doing with those kinds of things.
Yep. Multitasking of Clem is just so good, and we know that his micro is absolutely on point as well. I love how they even like always spreading their Marines a little bit when it's like, all right, there's a tank. I want to run into it, but I can't just run into it with everything because then we're eating way too many big shots to the face. So they're creating like these little gaps in their army and like dislining their Marines a little bit. It's truly a joy to see. Let's see if souL can turn it around. I'm not sure yet what map 2 is. I know we took a look at that before. It is going to be Death Aura. All right. Not a bad map for Reapers. Maybe we can get some chatter going in here, James.
Mate, who came up with some of these map names? Death Aura.
Yeah.
It's
It's a little dark, or what's wrong with it, James?
I mean, it just reminds me of a World of Warcraft spell. Like, where are we going with all of these things? There's Death Aura, Ice and Chrome. You know what? I would have much preferred Ice Cream. I'm gonna be honest, but
you just keep talking about all the sweets. What happened? You used to be like all about that gym life, and now you're talking about cheesecake and ice cream.
I have put on weight, Roddy. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm not stopping just yet. All right, let's get into it.
Well, James, you're definitely not the only one in this call, and Cats is in great shape, so it could be me. Anyway, let's get it on.
Let's up to the top left in the red. It is souL.
And in the bottom right side, one of the only undefeated players in this tournament, representing Team Liquid, it is Clem.
Yeah, so when all the gyms closed, it kind of fell off. It's very difficult when the gyms are closed.
I know,
and then
that's my excuse as well.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm not even gonna go there then. I'll shut up.
I mean, the gyms were closed, pizzas were still available. What's a man to do? You know what I'm saying?
There's only one thing available to you in that moment. I gotta go with the pizza. Okay.
Lots of monster, and then normally I use all that energy from the monster to just go for a nice run, you know. But I was like, well, I'll be responsible and I'll stay inside of my house. But yeah, then the pizzas, it does really start adding up. But you know what, James? We'll fight back in the future.
Yes, that's right. I need to start going again, to be perfectly honest. I actually tried to get Ring Fit for my Switch. It's a game where you like hold this ring thing and you like move it around and do stuff. And yeah, I played it once.
Tell me more, James. It sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very intrigued with other games other than StarCraft, yeah. How did your Iron Harvest tournament go?
Well, it didn't go very well. Okay, I lost to Benjamin Baker. That's the worst thing in the world.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I know. It's a tragedy. But honestly, that game is kind of fun. But I saw a tweet from someone yesterday, Melody or something on SC2, or Melody SC2 on Twitter. It's like, why do all the other RTS games feel so sluggish compared to StarCraft?
Right.
And I do think the idea of Iron Harvest is actually quite fun. Like, it's different kinds of resources, but you know, I'm just a fan of RTS games. So I'm always like, yeah, I kind of like where they're going with this, but it is kind of crazy that in the last 10 years, nobody has made anything remotely close to StarCraft, right?
Not at all.
Is it that unique to have a smooth, fast-paced RTS? Apparently, the answer is yes, but...
I think it's so actually I've looked into this quite a lot, and it's so much harder to balance a game that is fast, right? It's much easier to take an RTS and balance it when the units are slow, when the movement is a bit more not necessarily calculated, but just easier to predict and contribute to. So you're totally right that every single RTS, I've played so many, and they're all so slow compared to StarCraft. Oh.
Yeah, and it's not even like that. It's a bit slower, right? Because obviously, you know, I'm getting a little older as well, and I'm obviously loving the action of these guys. I'm still loving these tournaments, and I still enjoy playing. But every now and then, I'm like, man, like this game does really take a lot out of me, you know? As a 33-year-old man, it's hard to keep up. So I wouldn't mind a little slower, but it feels like if StarCraft is a Formula 1 car, then every other RTS is a bicycle. Like, that's just the difference in speed. Anyway, we've got a skirmish here with the 4 Reapers of souL going up that ramp. And Clem actually getting a great fight here, taking down 2 Reapers already. Not the start that souL's looking for. He's going to try to save his last Reaper with the grenade. Needs to throw one more grenade. Doesn't get it off. James, while we were talking about ice cream and pizzas, souL lost 3 Reapers and got absolutely 0 kills. Looks for a Hellion kill. Doesn't get it yet. Loses 4 Reapers. Loses all 5 Reapers. Ooh. Is this a flawless victory for Clem?
It might be. This is a lot of damage taken. Roddy, if these Hellions were M2 competitions and those Reapers were bicycles, I'll tell you something. The M2 competition is winning every single time.
I don't know what M2 is, but... All right. Really good grenades as well. That Marauder is going to get picked off, and that means that souL is not going to be able to keep his SCV safe on the low ground. We'll probably even end up losing this fight, of course, because the Reapers have so much micro potential. Oh my goodness. Clem is just putting on the clinic. Can we nerf Clem? Is that possible?
I mean, people have been calling to nerf souL for a long time, and it's GG. Clem